Good evening. A couple years ago, my wife and I decided it was time to stop being some selfish 20-somethings and start a family. So after being married for 5 years, we decided to do that. And she fortunately got pregnant pretty quickly and went through a very normal pregnancy without any problems. But that was kind of just a precursor to the drama which was to come. So her due date was in July in the summer, and her due date came and went, and nothing was really happening. And the next night, about 12:30 at night, I had just lain down to bed, and she sprung up in bed and says, "John, I think my water broke." And so I said, "Okay, time to spring into action and get our bag and go to the hospital." And so we called the hospital, and they said, "Okay, your water broke. What else is happening? Are you having contractions and stuff?" And she said, "No, I'm not having any contractions." And they said, "Well, can you feel the baby?" And she said, "No, I can't actually feel the baby." And they said, "Well, okay, if that's the case, then you need to come into the hospital right away. You can't wait at home to go into further labor." So we got into the hospital. It was about probably 1:30 in the morning. And they set her up on the monitors and everything, and she still wasn't really progressing. And they said, "Okay, the doctor's going to be here in the morning, and you need to get some rest right now." So we laid down in the hospital room there and slept for a couple hours. And then doctors came around, and maybe about on the second round, they had her hooked up to all these machines, and they came in with the doctor and the nurse, and they're looking in the corner of the room, studying the monitor, and they're really quiet, and they had just checked my wife, and we're kind of like wondering what they're doing. They're kind of looking back and forth to each other, and we're not sure what's going on. And then the doctor turns to me and in completely calm voice says, "John, we're going to have to get this baby out via C-section." I said, "Okay, that's normal. I was possibly expecting that if things didn't move along." And then just like that, the whole environment in the room changed. All these nurses came in and started wheeling my wife out, and we're not really sure what's going on. And I turned back to the doctor, and he says, "Oh, actually, John, your son is in a prolapse cord position," which I didn't know what that meant. They didn't prepare us for that at the birthing classes. But what it means is, as my wife has contractions, his head is pointed down and is pressing against the umbilical cord against the wall of her womb. And they said, and if this continues, he's going to lose oxygen and going to lose blood, and it can cause brain damage or even death. So at that point, I'm totally unprepared for what's about to happen, and so is my wife. And so we're kind of obviously mentally freaking out, and I look at her, and they're wheeling her out in the bed, and she's got just a total look of she's terrified on her face. And I say, "It's okay, it's going to be okay, I'm going to go with you." And so I'm kind of backing up and going with her, and then a nurse stops me and says, "John, you can't go into the operating room. This is an emergency C-section. She's going to have to be put out under general anesthesia, and the doctors can't get distracted by having the father in the room." And so I said, "Oh, okay." So then I had to wait in this corridor, kind of right outside the OR at Chester County Hospital, and I wasn't there with any of my family, so it was just me, and I was definitely in shock and kind of felt honestly, a little bit numb because I wasn't expecting this, and I did what I like to do in situations like that. I prayed, and I just said, short, simple prayers, nothing eloquent. I said, "God, help this baby to come out okay and my wife to be okay." And then I called our family members and some friends and asked them to pray as well. And, basically for 10 minutes kind of did that, went back and forth from praying and kind of looking through the window and the door to see what was going on in the OR. And after about 10 minutes, a nurse came out, and she looked very happy, and so I was thinking things were going to be pretty positive, and she says, "Everything's okay, your son's okay, he's really beautiful, and your wife's okay." And so I kind of just felt okay, I can relax now, everything's okay, the baby's out safely. And so a couple minutes later, they wheeled my son out, and he was in one of those little nursery carts, and I met him for the first time and kind of grabbed his hand and pulled him up and said, "Hey, I'm your daddy." And it was kind of neat because I was actually, my wife doesn't like me to say this, but I was kind of actually the first one that he met. She was really bent out of shape about that because she had a birth plan and everything. And the doctors afterwards, when they came in, they said, "Sorry we didn't really go according to your birth plan, but I was on the birth plan of get the baby out safely." So I was very happy. And then, he goes to the nursery, and then she comes out, and she's still really groggy from the anesthesia. And she was really worried. She's like, is he okay? She didn't even know if he was alive. She said, is he okay? And I said, yeah, he's fine. I just saw him. He looks a lot like me. He's kind of like he was kind of like a mini me. It's really, so she was very happy, but still groggy and a little bit scared. But one really interesting thing is all this happened so fast that when the doctors made the incision, his head was, like I said, pressed up against the side of the womb, and they actually just nicked the side of his head. So when I first met him, he has like 2 or 3 stitches on his head. And of course, I'm like kind of paranoid, so I'm like, is he have like brain damage or something? What's going on? And the doctor said, no, it's fine. It totally was fine, but they were going so fast because he was losing so much blood and oxygen. So he has a buzz cut nowadays. He's 3 years old now. And whenever we cut his hair, I'm reminded of how God took care of him when he was born. So thank you. Oh, yeah, sorry.